is presented in partnership with Exquisite Timepieces.
The Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch is one of, if not the most popular sports watches on the market. And whether I'm talking directly to watch collectors like you guys, or watch dealers, or putting up polls on my community page and reading the comments in my videos, everything does point to the same conclusion. That being that the Speedmaster is a fan favorite, a best-selling watch, and an extremely highly regarded timepiece. And I mostly agree. I had owned a Hesalite 1861 Speedmaster for many, many years, and I think in terms of design, it actually has one of the best dials in the business. Now, in terms of the heritage and the history, there are absolutely not many watches that have a stronger pedigree than the Moonwatch. Probably not any, actually. And when it comes to cool factor, I'll say that, yeah, it's cool as hell. But the Moonwatch isn't the only Speedmaster, and today I thought that we could take a little bit of time and take a look at both the Moonwatch and compare it to another model that I'm actually a pretty big fan of, the Speedmaster 57. Hey everybody, I'm Guy, and you're watching Just Bluefish Watch Reviews, and yeah, today is Speedmaster Day. Now, this video wouldn't be possible without the support of my channel partner and sponsor, Exquisite Timepieces, so let me give a big thanks and shout out to them for loaning me the watches for this video. If you're in the market for an Omega, you want to add one to your collection and your wrist, I cannot recommend the crew over at Exquisite Timepieces enough. They are my personal local brick-and-mortar watch dealer. They are an Omega authorized dealer, and they're dealers of dozens of other watch brands as well, including Seiko and Grand Seiko, Tudor, and many, many more. So do me a favor, visit their website, exquisitetimepieces.com, or give them a call at 239-227-2932, or visit them and their store right here in Naples, Florida. And if you go by there and talk to them or give them a shout, do let them know that you learned about their store from Guy and the Just Bluefish YouTube channel. I would appreciate it very much. Now, onto the watches. I have reviews on both of these watches on my channel, so I'm not going to go doing a full spec rundown feature by feature. I'm not going to cover every single detail of both of these watches in depth. I've talked about all of that in the past, and I think that it would be a little bit redundant at this point, so what I think I'm going to do instead is I want to just talk about some of the top similarities, and of course the differences between these two models, and of course I'm going to give you guys my opinion on some of the things that I like a little bit better, or dislike a little bit more about one of these watches over the other. So let's jump into it. In no particular order, an obvious similarity is that they're both Omega Speedmaster brand watches. And Omega is a brand with a very long history going back to the year 1848. Now, things have certainly changed a lot in the last 175 odd years, not the least of which is that the brand's name has changed a little bit as well, because it didn't start going by Omega exclusively until the year 1984. Now, currently, and for many decades, Omega has been a part of the Swatch Group, which includes a whole host of brands, including Blancpain, Breguet, Longines, Tissot, Hamilton, and many, many more. So yeah, while that is a pretty obvious similarity, I went for the low-hanging fruit here. Yeah, these are two watches from the same brand and the same model line. I think it is kind of important to remember that these two models are actually a whole lot more similar than they are different, because again, they are both Omega Speedmasters. Now, for me personally, one of the biggest differences of the watches comes down to the overall size of these watches. The Moonwatch comes in at 42 millimeters in overall diameter, and the 57 is a much svelter 40.5 millimeters. And yeah, I know, 1.5 millimeters doesn't sound like a whole lot. I will say that in the hand, and more importantly, on the wrist, it can make a pretty huge difference. Now, if you do prefer a larger, somewhat beefier watch, you will almost certainly gravitate towards the Moonwatch. That watch with the lyre lug profile case design and the larger proportions does give the Moonwatch a fairly significant wrist presence that the slimmer, more tapered Speedmaster 57 may lack just a little bit. But it lacks that wrist presence in a good way, in my opinion. At least I think that it fits my smaller, somewhat slender 6.5-inch wrist better. And overall, I just find it to be a bit more comfortable as a daily wear timepiece. Now, both of these watches are chronograph timekeepers, so you get a lot of similar features in that regard. Both feature start, stop, and reset pushers on the right-hand drive side of the watch case, and both feature a central seconds hand and sub-dial registers for tracking elapsed time. And both feature a tachometric bezel as well. That said, I do have to say that I find the dial, and in particular the sub-dials on the Moonwatch, to be a little bit more readable. The Moonwatch features separate registers for the 30-minute counter and the 12-hour counter, whereas the 57 model has a dual hand register that counts minutes and hours together, and it does make it slightly more cluttered, or has a slightly more cluttered display. However, the 57 model has the added benefit of a date display, making for a pretty striking difference in both the look and the dial layout, as well as the functionality. Now, I think most people would probably prefer the addition of a date complication on their watch whenever possible, and it is a great quality of life addition to have on the Speedmaster 57. Now, these two specific examples do have different color dials, one being black and one being red. And both watches do come in a variety of different dial color options, as well as different strap and bracelet options as well. So I don't want to dwell on the dial color differences too much. These are just the examples that Exquisite Timepieces had readily available when I was looking for watches to do this video on. As far as the beating heart of these watches, the movements, they're not the same. The Moonwatch has a 3861 caliber certified master chronometer, while the Speedmaster 57 features a caliber 9906, which is also a certified master chronometer as well. However, there's a 10-hour power reserve difference between these two movements, with the 9906 having the longer power reserve. And the 9906 also has a higher 4 Hz frequency, beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour, while the Moonwatch runs at 3 Hz and roughly 21,000 VPH. And while I don't personally care too much about the difference in power reserve or the frequency myself, it is something that you might consider if you're looking to add one of these to your personal watch collection. Now, both of these watches feature a modicum of water resistance. It is just 5 bar or 50 meters to be precise, which isn't great, but these aren't watches that are meant for water sports, so I guess it's a, similarity, but nothing to really write home about. Both of these watches feature an AR-coated sapphire crystal. They're both in a stainless steel construction, and they both come backed with Omega's 5-year warranty. So a bunch of more similarities there. All of that said, one other big difference between these two models is the price, with the Moonwatch coming in at $8,000 USD, and the Speedmaster 57 having a retail price of $9,500. And that price difference of $1,500 might make it hard for the average buyer to justify going with the 57 over the Moonwatch, especially when you factor in what I'd call the cool factor. If there is such a thing. I think there is, but that's just me. And yeah, for me, that might be one of the biggest differences of all between these two watches. The Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch is, as the name implies, the Moonwatch. It's the watch that has all of the history and the provenance involving space travel and going to the moon on the Apollo 11 mission. And while this specific example never went to the moon, of course we know that, knowing that its design is directly based on a watch that did does kind of make it just a little bit more cooler, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth. But listen, I'm just one man with an opinion giving a very, very brief overview of these two watch models. So do me a favor, tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. Which Speedmaster model would you choose between the Moonwatch Professional and the Speedmaster 57? So yeah, while I do like them both quite a bit, even preferring some things about the Speedmaster 57, like its smaller size, I do think that the Moonwatch is the absolute king of the hill, and it's pretty much the best when it comes to Speedmaster models. Alright guys, that'll wrap this one up for today. Big thanks again to Exquisite Timepieces for loaning me these watches for the video. Without their help and support, making this content just wouldn't be possible. So do me a favor, and if you are looking for a new watch, definitely give them a look, and if you do talk to them, let them know that you appreciate their support of the Just Bluefish channel.